We'll get into a lot of the 2-minute kind of situational stuff here today. So you'll see a couple of those kind of drives that come up, whether it's the end of the half, the end of the game, a lot of communication, a lot of different packages, different scenarios that come up, a lot of one play sort of important information to talk through. So as much as we can get that, on the field, we'll try to take advantage of that as much as possible. And the rest of it's going to be a lot of transition, a little bit of a shorter practice again today, kind of the third day in a row. We always try to monitor the total amount of workload that all of our players are doing. And understanding that when we get to a certain point of consecutive days of reps and repetition and kind of the physicality of what we're doing out there, we're trying to monitor that correctly to have our optimal performance. Going to take the pads off today in practice, just as a good day for us to do that from that standpoint with 2 minutes, a lot of running, a lot of kind of, situational teaching stuff. So we can do that at a pace without the equipment on. Obviously the equipment's there for protection, so we're going to pull off on some of the contact, but we'll still be able to practice in a manner that we'll get some work done. So get to do that before we move into tomorrow's practice down at the stadium, which we're obviously excited about. Excited to get down to our our field, our home turf, and get in there and just get a feel for the building and work on some certain things down there, and obviously have a great night, and looking forward to seeing the fans and everybody out there just to bring that extra excitement to practice. So, what do we got?
Coach, with the pads idea and not having them on today, is that kind of scheduled? I mean, you had like 4 straight where you had pads, and now today off. Will it now then be moving on from here?
You know what? It's really day by day as far as the equipment is. I always check with the players themselves and with our medical staff and our trainers to kind of see where we're at and how the bodies are feeling. And sometimes if we've had a longer, more physical practice, if there's something we need to do to take them off, it's pretty simple from that standpoint. It doesn't really alter too much on practice. It's just more of, for us, just getting the guys to practice a little bit in a different way. And a lot of it also has to do with the point of emphasis for the day. So for us today, with, still working on third down, still working in the 2-minute situation. Not that the run game isn't as prevalent, but there's just some, a certain amount of reps that we can get in practice total. So a little bit more of that will be dedicated to those periods today. So just a kind of a good kind of opportunity to do it.
T. Staber's a guy we've talked a lot about this offseason. I know you like what you saw from him on the field and off the field back in the spring. Have you seen him carry that over into the fall?
Yeah, you know what? I think he's done a really good job of just coming in with the same attitude that he had in the spring and the work ethic of trying to understand what we do. And it's still all about competition out there on the field. And I feel like he's just growing so much as a player. We go through installation, we go through film review. He asks a lot of really good questions, and he's asking questions that for him, he just really wants clarity on. And I think the more clear it is for him, then the more he can just take over from an athletic standpoint and be sure about his assignment and his job. And hopefully that puts him in the best situation possible to go compete when we get on the field and, we get into the competitive situations that are coming up. So I would say from that standpoint, it's been a really mature approach from him every single day, and it's been consistent, which is great. Like I said, we talk about just trying to come in, be the same person in the building every day, be consistent, because that's the best way for us to evaluate your improvement, and he's really trying to do that.
This is going to be a couple days ahead, but is there a difference when you do maybe joint practices with New England or maybe even Houston, if you look, because you have so much familiarity with Bill versus other teams like you did last year? Is there a difference when you do that?
Yeah, I would say just in general through the course of the years that we've been doing joint practices, whether I was previously with New England or here, you're always going to try to find coaches that work in a similar fashion, have the same mentality of things that you want to get done in practice. What's the idea of it? I think that's the biggest thing. You got to sit down as a head coach and say, all right, well, what's your vision of us practicing against each other? What do you want to get done? And certainly with Billy O and Coach Belichick, myself having that history, with each other and that kind of understanding of philosophy of this is what we're looking for, every single day we go out there to compete, it makes that conversation so much easier, and that you can actually then now really dive into, all right, so we're going to do 7-on-7 here. This is going to be a team period. We're looking for this drill here. Hey, what about, remember we used to do this drill. Do you still want to do that? No. Hey, let's change it to this. That conversation goes so much smoother and faster, where we're obviously in a, time crunch here, a training camp, and we're working on so many different things, but, I'm in the middle of planning those practice sessions with those coaches and kind of nailing down basically where everybody's at. You can lay the foundation of it, the shell of what it should look like, a couple months ago, which is what we do, but everybody's team changes right up until the time that you go and practice against each other. So there's some things in there that you have to then modify based on that. So it just makes the communication part of it so much easier.
Just two quick follow-ups.
Yep.
One, maybe how much time a week, how much time a day do you end up spending on those versus kind of everything else?
Sure.
Because it's coordination with.
It's hard to kind of just nail it all down. It might be a phone call in the morning for 45 minutes, and we're probably on pretty much the same exact schedule. So we have those same breaks throughout the course of the day where I know, hey, I'm going to call you here for 10 minutes there. I'm going to call you the next day for 15 minutes here, or I'm going to send you this email. Because both of those guys they're running their own teams too, and they've got a lot of responsibilities. But it's, again, there's another easy facet when everybody's on the same schedule and kind of relatively doing the same thing, just in different cities. It makes that communication that much easier. It's a little bit more difficult if you're maybe practicing against a team that's on a different time zone, or that's the hours are just different and the schedule's different. To kind of really nail down a lot of that communication it's not hard. It's just more of a challenge.
I think they run a very similar defense to you. Does that make it easier, harder, give you a different look? What does that do?
Yeah, I think in general, I'm not really sure what they're going to run right now. That we'll find out when we get out there, and probably the same for us with them. But I think just in general, the challenge of going against somebody different, somebody new, there's always certain twists or different turns to whatever anybody's going to do. No different than with Houston. It's all the same down there too with Romeo and those guys that are running everything that they're doing. We're all so far removed from each other from that standpoint. I think everybody just goes in different directions, and it's just really about competition. It's not like these practices aren't big scheme things. I'm certain anything we see out there is going to be nothing more than player evaluation. I think we just want good fundamental technique work and see what it looks like. I think the rest of that stuff is for September and October.
Matt, this is a little bit of a strange question, but something we were talking about beforehand. Is there any league rules or gentlemanly agreement that prevent opponents from coming to these open practices? Or do you just assume there's always maybe prying eyes out there?
Great question. Not anything that I'm aware of as far, I don't know if somebody's going to come. It's interesting to me right now with as much social media and cell phones and cameras and all that stuff that's everywhere. I just pretty much assume everything is always out there. It's always filmed. It's always taped. It's interesting to me sometimes some of the things that I can find out there that are, maybe on display. So we know that ahead of time. We're very careful with some of the stuff that we show out there in some instances. Or look, sometimes it might just be a philosophy or a core concept that we want to get in, understanding that, all right, we put it out there. We're probably going to have to change something about it, but we still need practice on the timing of the play or the concept of what we're trying to do. We still have to work. We still have to get some stuff done, and we still have to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And I would say that's why it's the safest for us to just really concentrate on fundamentals, technique. And because if we have all that solidified, like I said, scheme, nobody knows what the scheme's going to look like in September. And like I said before, whatever it looks like in September, scheme-wise, it's going to be different in November. So it's really just about the players themselves, developing the players, developing the coaches, getting that ground work done, the foundation, the fundamentals, so that you can build from there. We got to start at, like I said, every year you start over. So you got to start at ground zero and just build up.
Officials in practice, and I know it's still a new rule that you're digesting, or the pass interference rules, I guess, but what strategies do you think could come into play with that this year, both from an offensive standpoint and from a challenge standpoint?
Yeah, I think it'll be real interesting through the course of the preseason, to watch coaches and to really try to push, the different strategies with that involved and to see what happens. Certainly the rules have been, the rules change every year. We're just trying to do the best we can with them. I think the challenge part of it is interesting. I think it'll be more interesting is depending on how critical the play is, how important is that play? And then, do you use it? Do you save it? Is there another part of the game? And, so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds. And I think you try to look at it as much as you can in the preseason and hopefully try to develop your philosophy as you go. You go into the season with an idea of how you want to do it, and then, maybe push it to the limits as much as you can when you have the opportunity to, and then, reevaluate it. Well, I think we're figuring stuff out all the time. I think we figure stuff out with the rules, really even through the season. We're always kind of adjusting, and the league adjusts too. I think the league, they do a great job evaluating the rules changes and what it looks like early in the season, and then getting everybody on the same page to what it's going to look like, through the course of the rest of the season. I think everyone certainly just continues to work to try to make it the best, most efficient, thing that we can. So you have to be fluid with all that and just constantly evaluating. So.
Yeah, just one thing about Matt Prater, he obviously a strong leg and all that. What does, having an asset like that, and how does that affect maybe his accuracy from distance, affect end of half and end of game decisions, whether it's go for it,
Yeah.
punt, all that stuff?
Yeah, it does. It affects a lot of it. And the other thing about him that's so wonderful is just he's a great communicator. So if there's a situation in the game that'll come up that he's like, I feel really strongly about this. I trust him. We're going to do something accordingly, whether it's the end of the half or the end of the game. A lot of stuff at the end of the game it is what it is. There's going to be time, there's going to be place, and we're going to have to either go and kick it and make it, or we're not, from that aspect of it. But the end of the half is where it gets real interesting from that aspect of it, because you're trying to secure points, and certainly with the clock, and you don't want to turn the ball over, and you got to be careful about what you set the other team up for before the end of the half and things like that. But with his leg strength and his his accuracy and his approach to what he does every single day to get better, I really trust him a lot. And look, there's situations in the game that come up where he may feel good about it, before the game, and there's a conversation we have, and it's like, something changed, something shifted, and we're going to move in a different direction philosophy-wise, and he's very good with the communication as far as that's concerned. So it just makes it easier for me.